Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Arrange Shapes group in the Timesavers 1 tab of the Timesavers add-in. So the Arrange Shapes group allows you to take any shapes that you have. Now remember that shapes can be anything that you can put on a slide. So that can be shapes or text boxes or pictures or tables or charts or anything that you can put onto a slide. Okay, so when you're using this group over here, it's not limited to only the shapes that you can put on what you may consider normal shapes that you can put onto your slides. It can be any object that you can have on the slide. Okay, so you have a few different options over here in this group. You've got some different arrangement options. You have the grid option, checkered option, offset X and offset Y. Then you also have different sizing options where, just like you had for the backgrounds of the slides, you have the option to have your shapes retain their size, or they can be resized while still maintaining their aspect ratio to best fit into the new location that they're going to be in, or you can have them stretched to fit the location fully without maintaining aspect ratio. Okay, so those are the sizing options that you have. You also have these fields that you can fill in over here. There's the number of rows and the number of columns. Now these are only really relevant if you are not working with a table. So when you are going to arrange your shapes, you'll see over here it says that the selected shapes, so any shapes that you have got selected, will be arranged in a grid in the order in which they were selected. So you can select them in whichever order you want them to be arranged in the grid. If you just select them as by dragging your cursor and selecting everything, or if you press Ctrl A to select everything, then it will automatically be selected in the order in which they were put onto the slide in the first place. So based on their Z order. But if you want it to be in a specific order, then you can select them in the order that you want them to be arranged in. Then, if you want your shapes to be arranged in a table of your own creation, then make sure that that table is part of the selection. If one table is part of the selection, then all the other shapes will be arranged in that table. If you have got more than one table selected, then that's not going to work, because there's no way that the code will know which table you want it to be arranged in, so that falls away and the tables will then be arranged along with the other shapes. So if you want all your shapes or your objects to be arranged in a table so that you can then control the size and the positioning and so on of the shapes, then you can insert the table and make sure that you select it along with the other shapes, and then when you click on the button, they will all be arranged in that table automatically. And then the number of rows and columns will be based on that table. If you do not select a table, then the number of rows and columns will be based on the numbers that you have filled in over here. Okay, then any excess shapes, so if you have more shapes than what fit into that table or into the rows and columns that you've specified over here, then any excess shapes will be placed on the right hand side next to the slide over there, so that you can then access them. They won't be deleted or anything, they will still be there. Okay, so that is the basics of how these different things work in terms of the arranging. So we're still going to look at the other three over here, but for now we'll just look at the arranging. So I'm going to start off by just inserting some pictures that I'm going to use for this example. So I will go and insert these pictures over here, and I'll just put all of them in. Okay, so that is quite a lot of images over there. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this tab over here. Now these images are quite large and there are a lot of them, so everything is going to be a little bit slow at the moment. But I just wanted to show you that you can work with a large number of images if you want to. Okay, so the first example I'm going to show you is where I'm not going to be putting in a table. I will be using the rows and columns over here. So I'm going to arrange this in a grid style. So it's that one. I'm going to get them to resize so that they maintain their aspect ratio, and I'm going to arrange them in a grid with 5 rows and 10 columns. Okay, so now if I click on this button over here, all of those that were inserted on the slide have now been arranged in this table over here. Okay, now you'll see that, or in this grid over here rather, you'll see that, like I said, all of the extra ones that didn't fit in have been placed on the side here, and all the ones that did fit in have been placed over here. Now they were placed in this arrangement in the order in which they were inserted on the slide, because I didn't go and reselect them. I didn't deselect them and then reselect them in a specific order, but I could have done that. So if I wanted them to be in a specific order, so say I wanted all the red ones to be first, I can get all my red ones over here, and then all my orange ones, and then let's get all the pink ones over there, and then the purple ones, and then the blue ones. Oh, I missed the purple ones, so let's, there's a couple of purples, then the blue ones, and then the oh, and I missed a red one right in the beginning, but that's fine. Okay, so then the turquoise ones. Did I select this one? Yes, I did. And then I'll select that last red one. Okay, so I think I've selected all of them. So now I'm going to go and click on that button again, and now you'll see that they rearrange, and you can see that they are now in the order that I selected them. Now that last red one is the one that I must have missed one, so it's hiding somewhere. But yeah, so this red one is the one that I selected last. So the order that you select them is the order that they will be placed in the grid from left to right, top to bottom. Okay, so that is if you are choosing to do it without a table. Now you can also use the other arrangement options. So you have the checkered option. So if I want the checkered option like that, and I arrange, it will look like this. Okay, so now you can see that the 5 rows and 10 columns, these are considered columns, and these are considered rows. So now I have more that didn't fit, because now there are extra ones that are left out. Okay, then the next one is the offset X, which is like this. Okay, so you can see they're like that. And again, 5 rows and 10 columns is still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is not considered one column. These 3 are one column, and these 2 are another column over there, the same as they were for the checkered. Okay, then I'm going to do offset Y and arrange, and then it looks like that. So now you can see I've got here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 columns. Okay, so that is how it works when you are working without a table. Okay, so now I'm going to go and delete some of these so that I don't have so many images on my slide slowing everything down. And I'm just going to be working with these ones from now on. I'm going to move them out of the way. And now I'm going to show the example where you're able to put it into a table. So if I want to be able to control where these actually go and how they fit onto the slide, then I can do that by putting in a table and selecting it along with these pictures. So I'm going to put in a table. I will do a table of 3 by 4, and I will make the table that size. Now you could, if you wanted to, you could make the different rows different sizes and the different columns different sizes as well, and that it will, the pictures will fit into that as well. But it becomes a little bit more complicated when you're doing the checkered and so on. Okay, so long as I have the table selected along with the shapes that I want to arrange in the table, then when I click on this button, they will be automatically arranged in that table. But I'm going to change this back to grid because I want each of them to be in a cell of the table. Now the checkered and, or not the checkered really, but the offset X and offset Y will be a little bit different when you're working in a table. It doesn't work quite as well as When you do it without a table, it doesn't look quite as good, but it can still work. Okay, so now I've got all of those selected and I'm doing the grid. So now I'm going to go and click on that. And because it was resize, you see that they now have been sized to fit into the cells of the table without changing the aspect ratio. But if I wanted it to rather be so that they are stretching to fit into the cells, then I just change that to stretch, and then I click on that button again, and now you can see that they fit exactly into the cells. And here are my extras sitting over there. Okay, now I can also have them retain their size if I want to, in which case they'll just be placed in the center of the cells like that. So you have the choice. You can choose if you want them to be resized or not, and how you want them to be resized, and then you can just choose the arrangement style that you want as well. So if I wanted to choose checkered, then it will end up being only placed in alternate cells in that table. So if I click on there, you'll see now that there are cells that are left out, and there I've got my checkered pattern. So there are more sitting over here. Okay. When you're working with a table like this, then the checkered and the offset X and the offset Y basically will end up looking the same, except if you are choosing the stretch option. Okay, so let me show you. So if I do offset X, and this is still retaining size, so they're still going to stay that size over there, then it looks the same as it did for the checkered option, because the offset X also puts them into these alternate cells. But if I show you what it looks like when you have it set to stretch, you can see the difference. Now you can see what's actually happening. So these are actually, it's being placed in this one, but it's being stretched to fill from the middle of the previous cell to the middle of the next cell, and the same thing for that. So that is why it is still actually offset X. It's just when you have it set to retain, then it ends up looking more like the checkered option if you're working with shapes that are more square size, that are more square. Okay, so that is what it looks like when you're working with a table. Now I'm going to show you the next one. So that was all the arrangement ones that you could do. Now I'm going to show you the pattern option. So now the pattern option is slightly different to the arrangement. Actually, before I do that, I want to show you. So if I don't choose all of those, if I only choose a few of them, and I select the table, and I click on the Arrange button, let's change it back to grid, okay, and I click on the Arrange button, then you'll see that there are extra cells that are empty because I didn't have enough pictures selected to fill all the cells. Okay, so now, say for instance you want to make a pattern out of 3 of these pictures. So if I want to make a pattern out of those 3, then when I click on this one, it will take those 3 and it will repeat them in a recurring pattern as it fills the table. So in the order that I select them, so if I choose the purple one and then the blue one and then the red one, then they will be placed in the table in that order, and then they will be duplicated in a recurring pattern. Okay, so now I'm going to click on that, and I'm also going to select the table first because I want them to be put into the table, just like it was for the arranging. If I have a table selected when I do the pattern, then they'll be placed into the table. Okay, and now you can see that those 3 that I have are now making a recurring pattern over here. Okay, so all of the spaces will be filled using the pictures that you have selected, the pictures or shapes or whatever it is that you've selected. Okay, so now let me undo that, and let me show you what it's like when I do not have a table selected. So now I'm going to take those and I'm going to select them, and now I'm going to do this, and now it's going to use the 5x10 that I have over here because I haven't changed that. And I click on there, and now you can see it's made a 5x10 grid pattern like that. Okay, so that is what it looks like when you are using the pattern option. Now you can also do the different arrangement for the pattern as well. You can choose checkered, and if I click on there, then you'll see that it makes this checkered pattern like that. And if I choose offset X, it will look like that. And if I choose offset Y, it will look like that. And you can select as many or as few pictures as you want to, or shapes or anything as you want to when you're doing the pattern one, because it will just keep on recurring or keep on duplicating whatever you have selected. So if I only wanted that one and I wanted lots of them, then I could just do that, and then that is the only one that will appear over and over and over again. If I wanted all of them, then I can do that, and then it won't be repeating nearly as often. So that is how the pattern one works. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the next option, which is this one, is the tidy up option. Now the reason I did this is because for the arrangement and the pattern, you basically are forced to have every single space filled. But the tidy up one is one where if you have, say, a table, it doesn't have to be with a table, it can be with an imaginary table, but say you've got a table and you have just roughly put things. Okay, let me just send the table to the back so we can see what's happening. Okay, so now I'm putting these in my table, but I'm doing it very messily. I am not trying very hard to get them positioned properly. Now I can just select all of those, click on tidy up. Wait, I don't want to resize those. I want them to retain their size. So I'm going to click on tidy up, and you can see that they all get centered in the cell that they are already in. Okay, now the nice thing with this is if you have cells that aren't supposed to have anything in them. So say I don't have anything in those cells, and now I select all of them. I can still click on this and they will still be centered in the cells that they are in, and I'll just have blank cells for those ones that didn't have anything in them. So that is why it's different to these ones over here, because here you can choose what cells you want things to be in by putting them there, and if you don't want anything in specific cells, you just don't have to put anything in those cells. Now this also works, so let me just take that out. This also works if you don't have a table. You don't have as much control over how they get positioned, but you can, like over here, this was 3 rows and 4 columns. So I would do 3 rows and 4 columns because that's how I would want this to be arranged. And then I'm going to click on tidy up. And now you can see that it does tidy up into a 3 row and 4 column formation, but it's not quite the same size as this was because I didn't have anything there to tell the add-in what size it's supposed to be. So the add-in just had to try and guess what size it's supposed to be. So that is how the tidy up option works. So for the tidy up option, obviously these are not going to be relevant because it's based on where it is in the grid that you have got or that you are specifying the size of. Okay. But you can still have the tidy up option using different sizings. So you can, so if I undo that, okay. So if I select those, now if I choose the stretch option over here, you'll see that when I click on this, they stretch to fill the spaces that I've specified I want 3x4, so it's making a 3x4 grid, and it is making them fill the spaces that they fit into on the grid that it is creating for that, the imaginary grid. Okay, so that is possible as well. You can have it stretch, you can also have it resize as well. I need to select the shapes, sorry, and then do that. So now it's resizing, but it's not stretching, so they're not getting distorted in any way. Okay, so that is how the tidy up option works. Now the shuffle option does not obviously use the offsetting either, or the grid or checkered or anything like that either, and it also doesn't use the rows and columns because the shuffling is based on the positioning of the existing shapes that you have selected. So if I choose to select all of those, then I will have my shuffling shuffle all of them randomly like this. Now at the moment, I have it set to resize. So the pictures are resizing to fit into the space that they are going to. So if I have a big one that is now being placed in a small one's position, it will be resized. Now, something that I forgot to mention before is in terms of the resizing and so on, the resizing and stretching, if you hover over here, you'll see that for resizing, it says that the aspect ratio will be maintained and the text will be scaled. And for the stretching option, the aspect ratio will not be maintained, and then the text will be scaled based on the width of the shape. Okay, so if you are using a shape, so if I insert a shape like this, and I put in a number, so I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger so you can see it a bit better. Okay, so now I'm going to see, remember I said you can use shapes, you can use pictures, any of that. It doesn't matter what it is. It's any object on a slide is considered a shape. So if I take this and I shuffle, now you'll see that if the this one gets placed in a smaller position, you'll see that the one has been scaled. So the shape itself will look the same, just smaller. The text will be the same size in relation to the shape as it was to start off with. And if I have it going to a very big size, so if I shuffle again and it happens to end up in that position, let's see if we can get it to end up there. Let's see how long, there we go. And now you can see that the number 1 is very big because the text has been scaled. So when you are shuffling, if you choose to have it resizing or the stretch option, then the text will be scaled based on the change in size of the shape. Okay, and when it's the stretch option, it'll be scaled based on the change in the width of the shape, because obviously the width and the height are not necessarily changing by the same amount or by the same scale. Okay, so that is how the shuffling option works. You have the resizing, you have stretching, you have retaining size, all as options. So let me just show you. If I make this, actually let me make it a tall one like that. Okay, so now if I choose stretching like that, and I select all of those, including that one, and I click on shuffle, then now you can see that the flower that has replaced that number 1 over there is now stretched to fill that space, and the number 1 is now not stretched because it's not in that space anymore. Okay, but if I choose to retain the size, then all of them will stay the same size as they were, but in different positions, centered on the position that they are moving to. So that is how the shuffling option works. So that is everything for the arranging shapes group in the Time Savers 1 tab of the Time Savers add-in. I hope that has been helpful, and I hope that you have a fantastic day. Thank you. Goodbye.